Let me bring in our guests. Group Captain Ajay Ahlawat joins us. Rishabh Shah is our guest also on the show. Aviation expert Sanjay Lazar and Captain Sharad Panicker is with us as well. Captain Panicker, beginning with you, from your experience as a DGCA inspector and also as a pilot, did the regulators fail to foresee risks in Indigo's staffing approach before the November 2025 flight duty rule changes?
Good evening, Maria. I think you are spot on that because there is no way in which both the Civil Aviation Ministry as well as DGCA was unaware of the fact that the induction rate of pilots by Indigo was falling well short of what was the requirement to meet the shortfall that would be imposed upon them in terms of the additional pilot requirements for the implementation of the car. Do keep in mind that this car had come out on the first of, or rather in the beginning of January 2024, with an effective date of the 1st of July 2024. So the entire community, including the airlines and including Indigo, was well aware of what was in store and what was the additional requirements that would have to be met in order to fulfill the conditions of the car. The fact that they went to court and then the Delhi High Court had given them a specific date for implementation of the car in 2 phases, that is first 15 clauses by the 1st of July 2025, that is this year, and the remaining 7 clauses by the 1st of November. Everybody was aware of it. So I'm sure that the ministry was also aware of it, and I'm sure the DGCA was also aware of it. And on top of that, Indigo has gone ahead and increased its footprint during the winter schedule. So this wouldn't have gone unnoticed either by the ministry or by the DGCA. So you're spot on that.
Yes, so the question here is, Group Captain Ahlawat, that it's perhaps known that in winter season, because of holidays and vacations, there are extra bookings, and because of the fog, there has to be extra precaution in ensuring that the entire, rostering is done keeping that in mind. So, Group Captain Ahlawat, my question is, how do you view this entire mass sick leave? Does it reflect indiscipline, or is it a legitimate fatigue protest given the chronic crew shortages that we have seen?
Good evening, ma'am. I think your information is not accurate. I don't see there is any instance of mass sick leave. The pilots had to be off-rostered because they were not legal to fly anymore because of the provisions of the car which came in force on 1st of November. As you mentioned in your opening comments, 4 days and counting, the contours of this crisis are becoming clearer now. Initially, everybody thought these are the revised norms, which the previous speaker also mentioned and gave us a little bit of details about when it was supposed to kick in and when it did kick in. The new FDTL norms kicked in on 1st of November. The crisis happened in first week of December. This needs a little bit more deliberation. Secondly, when Indigo knew they are short of crew, they went ahead and added another additional 1,000 flights for the winter schedule. Typically they fly about 14,000 a week. They made it to about 15,000. So they knew the new car will come in force. They're adding more flights. They know they don't have the crew. And you can't train an airline pilot overnight. It takes good about 6 to 8 months to get a first officer online. A captain would take even longer. So
that's right.
There are these questions that need to be answered. And besides the very simple thing, as the flights were being cancelled, the website continued to book tickets. The least they could have done is to stop booking. These things must be investigated, in my opinion.
Okay, Sanjay Lazar, considering the thousands stranded by cancellation, do you think the adequate compensation would be what? And should airlines avoid offering vouchers that trap passengers further?
Thank you for having me, Maria. First of all, if I just may point out, you need to look at the investment calls of Indigo Interglobe stock in June and in November. At both these meetings, the board was told that we will have no problem with the FDTL regulations. It's there in the minutes of the con call. One important thing. Second important thing is Indigo stopped recruiting pilots, paused. in June of 2025, despite knowing that the car is coming in on the 1st of November. They ran their roster in the beginning of October for winter schedule with the 1,000 new flights, and they probably knew they wouldn't make it. They've had 1,000 flights cancelled in November. Nobody raised any alarms. Now coming to the refunds. Maria, you said day 4. It's actually day 7 if I count from the second. And
That's
everybody's
right.
forgotten about passengers who got gouged on the second, third, and fourth. Who is going to compensate them? Number two, of course, the government has said from the 5th onwards, Indigo is supposed to pay, I believe. They have issued a release saying they've paid 650 crores until yesterday. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. And like Group Captain said, the investigation has to be deeper. This 4 secretaries or 4 joint secretaries sitting on it is not going to work. According to me,
Okay,
there
so
is
Sanjay, since you're talking about internal planning failures, as you spoke about that con call, what are realistic timelines then for operational normalization, and can technology then play any kind of role in avoiding repeat disruptions?
Maria, the first thing that should have been done, according to me, was the DGCA should have said, you don't have so many pilots, roll back your schedule. Knock off 100, 200, 1,000, even couple of thousand flights because, you have 100 pilots, you can't expect them to do 200 people's work. You've got norms, even if you've taken waivers. So the first thing should have been no, roll back your schedule. Give those flights to Akasa or SpiceJet or Air India Express, which they've not done. They've given them a dispensation until February. Second thing here is, internal issues. I would say there's a lot more than meets the eye here. Because if the DGCA office and the JDG and CFOI knew about these cancellations of November, why did they let it go into December and have this cascading chaos? We've got to look at a way of bringing that 63% down under 50%. I think there has to be a restructuring of the aviation market in India. And this is the opportune moment for the government of India to take action.
Okay, Rishabh Shah, as someone who would be viewing this entire crisis, what are your thoughts, and what could youth like you do? Forums such as yours, I'm sure you're speaking to the stranded passengers and interacting with them. Do you have a story to share as well, Rishabh?
Firstly, Maria, thank you for having me. And I was keenly listening to the conversation. And it's deeply disappointing to see that, the only remarks that seem to be coming from the government is that they're going to take some action. First things first, before I, say anything, the government must be commended because from 74 airports in 2014 to now, 160 plus airports that they've built. So they've done a great job. But also as much as Indigo is to blame, I think also the government needs to be held responsible. And the reason I'm saying this is not just because of the Indigo crisis, but because of what I've seen at the airport. There was a young man who was at the airport. He was sitting below the stairs and he was crying. I went up to him and I asked him what happened. He said, I was going for my grandmother's funeral. I don't have enough money in order to buy another ticket. And the reason was because Air India had hiked its fares to 60 to 70,000. It was 10 times the amount that was normally there. So the man couldn't go for his grandparents' funeral. Now, it begs the question saying, how do we have one industry with 95% or 92% to 95% being divided in terms of market share between 2 airlines? Indigo and Air India control that much percent of market share. So when one airline goes down, the second one cashes in, and it is crony capitalism, and the government did not do much for those few days. So therefore, that is one question. The second thing which comes to mind is the fact that this is not just in the aviation sector. Crony capitalism is now almost all across. If you see the e-commerce sector, you've got Amazon at about 31% market share. You've got Flipkart at a 48% market share. So the way India shops is also
That's a
divided
valid
between two
point here,
companies.
Captain Panicker. How do you protect passengers from what visibly is a monopolistic failure?
See, there has to be government intervention. So if you look at what Rishabh has also just brought out, it was everybody who could exploit the situation exploited it. So there should be a cap. If the government, let's say, declares that this is a crisis, and let's say they say that on so-and-so date, starting from so-and-so time, air tickets cannot go more than twice what is the original stated amount. Similarly, the same thing is applicable to hotels as well. There were hotels that jacked up their prices by 10 times. A hotel which was available in Aerocity for around 10,000 rupees a night, it shot up to 70,000. So there should be a cap on that as well. If the government were to declare that this is a national crisis, as far as this particular sector is concerned, airfares cannot go up beyond so-and-so figure, into 2, let's say. Similarly, hotels that are in and around that area that is concerned with this, let's say the hotel fares per night cannot go up, let's say, by a figure of more than into 2. So this would go a big way in alleviating this problem and not letting the people that are around there exploit the situation to their benefit.
Okay, let me give you the last word, Group Captain Ahlawat. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, in your previous comment, you mentioned what can tech do. Since I run a tech company now, I tell you what the tech can do. All the airlines are mandated by the ICAO rules to submit ATR forms, and they run from A, B, C, D up till N. They're called ATR forms, and DGCA collects them. And each of these forms give information, inform an Excel sheet which says, these are the resources we have, this is their training status, this is what we need to spend, this is what we need to kind of train for. All this information is as such being submitted to DGCA. In this particular case, this is not a crisis of Indigo, it is a crisis of India's civil aviation sector. The patient was sick, the ministry waited for the patient to die, and now they're ordering, compensation and post-mortem and all that. There are ways and means available. Before the DGCA approves any new schedule, route, or slots, they should map the resources. Do the resource mapping first, and then go ahead and come out with rules. So in this way, we won't have to kind of do the post-mortem. We can probably save the patient before the patient dies. And who paid the ultimate price? The citizen. They'll keep running for the refunds, or the small guy at the counter at Indigo, they had to answer for questions for which they were neither prepared nor trained for. So
Yes.
I hope we get.
I hope tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow perhaps is a better day. There's no solution is what is evident at the moment. And perhaps because that is an airline's monopoly, which is leading to a crisis of an unprecedented nature. Thank you so much for joining us, Group Captain Ahlawat, Rishabh Shah, Captain Panicker, and Sanjay Lazar for their thoughts. That's all from me. Thanks so much for watching.